How are your grades in construction material? I'm talking to Hemant. Aman Singh, I can see he is there already. So how are your grades? I mean, how was your grades in construction material? All of you got fine?
Yes, sir.
Actually,
Yes.
most of you didn't come up for the, I guess, all of you, none of you came up for the final exam. What happened? Well, I leave you to that, but please don't repeat that again. Somebody is recording the session, right? Yeah, please do it. So, till your first year, when you talk about your when you talk about your architecture, your design, till the first year, what have you been doing? First year, what have you learned in architecture? Anyone would like to comment? Anume? Mr. Anume, are you there? What have you learned till first year? Section, plan, and what else? Can anyone else interject here, Kaushiki? Priyamvada. So how do you start a design? How do you start a design? Anyone can tell me. Design innovation and thinking process. Brainstorm for ideas. And what type of ideas would we be looking at? Say for example, I ask you to design a very basic stuff. For example, what did you have in your last semester as your design project?
Kiosk.
Kiosk design. Now this guy Aman Singh is telling me to develop sustainable built environment. What is this sustainable built environment? Aman? Got it, bus stand, but what is the sustainable built environment? Safety, beauty, functionality, okay. This part about safety is fine, beauty is okay. As an architect, you have to make your building beautiful. Amod is saying we have to understand the conditions, restrictions of the structure and then start coming up with the ideas. Yes, you have to think about what are the parameters. But the most important part which generally we don't look at is the functionality. You can make your building look beautiful, everything, with less negative impact on nature. And how do you reduce the impact on nature? Natural materials, green buildings by using elements of nature, etc., etc. Another new word what I am seeing here is green buildings. What is this green building? What are these green buildings? Paint them green? Eco-friendly materials. Buildings with less carbon footprint, natural beauty. Now another term comes up from Kaushiki, which is carbon footprint. What is carbon footprint? Ashish also says the same, carbon footprint. What is this meaning of carbon footprint? Production of CO2 by a building. What your building is breathing and that is why it is releasing CO2? Then, what is it, Ashish? Raman is rolling on the floor. The production in it. The production means now we have this word carbon footprint. You can take these down. I mean, over the next 4 years of your architecture study, this sustainable building, carbon footprint, they are actually going to be some of the major words which you will be actually seeing every time. Use of breathing walls or green walls. If your wall is actually breathing, then your indoor environment is not under your control. We have got quite a few words today. Some of them is carbon footprint. We heard green buildings. Filled with plants, natural beauty. If you are trying to stay in a building filled with plants, you better you won't stay in a jungle. Probably you'll have lot of plants. Now, if I ask you one thing, who said this filled with plants? Priyambada. Concept of living walls. Fine, we are coming to those. Now, if I talk about a building which has lot of plants within it, okay, say in your classroom there are lot of plants, what would be the problem? Suffocation at night. If your building is, yeah, filled with plants, if your residence is filled with plants, you'll have the issue of insects and more like your, not only at night, your daytime also it will become rather humid. So you have to think about some balance and stuff. We can always design buildings. As an architect, you have to trim them from time to time. Great. Now, whenever you're talking about these buildings, you can talk about design, you can talk about functionality, but there is a certain part within your building which generally as architects we miss. Which one is it? As an architect, generally a few aspects of your building we generally miss as an architect. Which aspect do you miss? Which aspect or aspects do you miss? Functionality is something which as an architect you would always be trying to put in. Beauty, of course, you will try to bring in as an architect. But which aspects generally we miss as architects? Safety, it's not a huge task. Mostly your buildings are safe. We approach that one also in our way while designing a building. Sustainability, that generally is not the requirement every year. It is not that an architect has to look at sustainability always. I mean, it has become the norm over the past 10-15 years. But yes, sustainability I can agree with, not in accordance with climatic conditions of a place. Fine, low maintenance. Overall, if I talk about, we generally miss out on the services, the building services. For example, we are talking about your bus stand. It's an open place. It's not exactly an enclosed building. But if I'm talking about your house, I'm talking about your apartment, wherever you're staying. In case, for example, how does it affect the pre-established environment? I mean, don't use such short words. It becomes very difficult for me to understand. Environment, right? Established environment. So you have your established environment. Yes. How does it? No issues there. Okay. But how does it affect the pre-established environment? One of the most important part you're building, of course, it has to look around the surroundings and everything. But when you're talking about your individual building, you also need to look at how your building is going to uh, function on its own, the services, the structure. Structure is one part you would be gradually getting in touch with over your next few years. That's also an important part. And as an architect, you need to have very basic idea about structures, but also you need to have, to a certain extent, good idea about the services. How your services are going to perform, where are they going to be located. Partially you may look at the slope and stuff, but also you need to look at the electrical, the openings, where and how should they be located so as to best get the benefits. Services could be, what are the services, the building services within a building? Can anyone name them? Electricity, yes. Lift, waterworks, plumbing, water supply, water and security, yes. Air, which one are you talking about? Air, air is already there. Sunlight is not exactly a service. Mechanical systems, yes. Probably Sahil was targeting about air conditioning. He forgot to condition the air. Okay, so you have mechanical services, HVAC. These are some of the main services you will be coming across. And while you are talking about your architectural design, try to, what is ICT? Aman? Information of and communication. Okay, tech. Information and communication tech. Okay, you're talking about the communication systems within the building. Yes. Why is it coming in so many parts? Okay, so that's how we try. I mean, one of the most important parts is fire safety. These are some of the important parts which you must look upon whenever you're talking about design. Today will be a first lecture on a building service or a building science for that matter, which is climatology, climate and architecture. I mean, different institutions call the same subject by different names. Mostly we talk about your climate within the building or outside the building. We need to look at that. Something similar, I mean, just off topic, something similar to what we generally face with computer systems. My PowerPoint presentation somehow crashed today, and I am earthquake alarms. Well, earthquake alarms are generally not there. They generally strike without information. But yes, fire safety is something we need. Earthquake alarms, I don't know to what extent. Okay. But coming back to our lecture then, I believe we have a fair bit of idea of what we will be looking at here. I mean, generally over the next 4 years, the services. Might be it doesn't have a lot towards your credits, but it is an important part, the services, because that actually makes your building. You can work as an architect, but you don't have the idea about services, how are they going to perform, your building may lose out the functionality. This guy Ayush Raj has dropped out of your course, right? Okay, chalo. Okay, so as I was telling, my PowerPoint today crashed in the morning just after I reached my office, and so some things may be missing in this PowerPoint. Second thing, if you are trying to question or give any comments, better say it out verbally, because as when I am presenting, I won't be able to see the chat. Okay, please take a note of that. As long as the presentation is on, I won't be looking at the chat. It will be difficult, but yes, you are free to ask questions, comment, anything more you like to know during the presentation. Please be free in that aspect. So today, our first lecture will be looking at what are these climatic conditions. So when you talk about climate and architecture, what are you going to study in this? It's a theory course, might not have a lot of credit, but what is the point of studying this particular course, climate and architecture? We will be talking about green buildings here. Anyone? Please say it out orally, because it's difficult for me to follow both the chat and the PowerPoint. Will you be studying about green buildings here? Anyone?
So, like different places with different climatic conditions will require different different type of green building.
But when you talk about climate and architecture, do we actually look at green buildings? We'll have to look at that. We know we have a fair bit of idea what are these green buildings. You said two words there, sustainable buildings and green buildings. Are they same?
So
Anyone?
like a green building is a
Sarah,
sub is a part
one
of
by one.
sustainability.
Gomti, we can talk about next. Okay, but who is this? Who
Sir,
is this?
a green building is a sustainable building, but not all sustainable buildings are green. Particularly,
Particularly? Yes? Okay, anyone else? We'll be talking about better indoor environment. Do you agree to this? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
We'll be talking about green buildings when you talk about climate and architecture. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
We'll be talking about green buildings. Better indoor environment. We'll be talking during our lecture course. Anyone else? We'll be talking about net zero buildings. Two persons have replied.
So
Anume,
what
will you be
is it?
talking about net zero buildings? You don't know. Fine. We'll be looking into it. I have a fair bit of idea about it. So, but anyone can tell me what are these net zero buildings?
Zero energy consumption.
Right, net zero energy buildings. So we'll be talking about these when we talk about climate and architecture during our lecture, this subject. We'll be talking about sustainability. Whoever told me this
yes,
and
sir.
sustainability, who was talking last, I have no idea. But yes, when you talk about not all sustainable buildings are green buildings. Green buildings, they have a certain set of norms which you need to adhere to. It's something like a certain codes have been made. If you follow those, you get a green rating. Your building may be sustainable but may not be green. And vice versa, if your building is a green building, it may not be sustainable. May or may not be. Okay. Integrated design.
Why, sir? Because all green buildings are sustainable.
Not necessarily. I'll talk about it after this. Okay. We'll talk about it. What are these integrated design? Can you tell me? Will you be looking at integrated design type of thing?
Like openings in a building, like slits or windows, doors.
But what is this integration?
But it's like a combination of maybe a green building, a net zero building, and
Can you
sustain.
tell me whether these green buildings are net zero energy buildings? Can you tell me? Are green buildings net zero energy buildings?
Don't know.
Okay. Who was this? Nitisha?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
maybe or may not be.
Maybe or may not be. See, none of them are
Like,
like a net zero building doesn't need to be a green building. A green building may or may not be a net zero building. Yes,
But sir, they are based on two different principles.
yes, they are based on two different principles. But sometimes when you talk about this integrated design, you can make your green building to perform as a net zero energy building. Not exactly net zero, but with reduced energy or say reduced waste. You can check out one building online, Pixel. The Pixel, it's a building in Australia, Pixel. Okay, that building has managed to reduce its dependence on outer energy grid to a very minimum level. It functions off the energy grid. So there can be, and it's a green building. It's rated very high on the Australian green rating system, the Green Star rating system, if I remember correctly. So A green building may be a net zero building, and a net zero energy building may be a green building. Will you be talking about vernacular architecture? Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of this vernacular architecture?
Sir, it's using the traditional methods of architecture and using local materials.
Using the local and traditional materials. So will you be looking into that when you talk about climate and architecture? When you talk about climatology, will you be looking into vernacular architecture?
Sir, using local materials
Yes, sir.
and without the use of some professional architect, made by some local sort of people.
That's
Even sir,
vernacular.
how did older technology helped to maintain the climate, like help to go with the climate?
Help to go with the climate. Vernacular architecture may be passive design. Can you tell me what is passive design? Anume, can you tell me? There are some voices which I would like to hear. I have never heard them speak or do any activity within my classes. Anume? Hemant, are you there? Sahil, can you tell me what is the meaning of this passive design?
Sir, I think passive design takes the help of climate to maintain the temperature in the built environment.
One thing you must remember here, whatever words you are seeing, they might not be related with climate all the time. Okay, so now tell me what is the meaning of this passive design? Anyone
The
other than
design in which we
yes?
use materials like mud, stone, wood that
Uh,
less embodied energy,
Less embodied energy, more embodied energy might be one thing. Okay, who is this?
Priyamvada sir.
Okay. Anyone else can
Sir,
tell me what is?
what is
Sir, a passive building.
embodied energy?
Okay, we'll look into it. Embodied energy. Fine. Who was talking? Right?
Sir, a passive building
Okay,
takes
sir.
advantage of climatic conditions around to make a comfortable temperature range in a room or a building.
Okay, we'll get you there. Who was this?
Sir, Aman.
Passive design may be something like using localized, something
Localized?
like we can use solar energy for producing heat, and we also use solar energy for producing electricity. Like that, passive designs may be like something like that only.
Okay, when you talk about these passive systems, it is something like it is there in your structure, it is there in your building, but it is not working actively. Okay, a passive security system, I will just tell you, uh, you have the street dogs in your colony probably. In your neighborhood, you might have these street dogs. That's a medium of passive security. It is there, okay. You are unable to do away with it. It will secure you at night by barking, okay, but it is not an active means. For example, if a security guard is there, he will have to be active all the time, look around. But this passive system of security, like the street dog, It's a passive means. It is there, but it is not functioning directly. It is not directly involved in anything. That is what is passive design. We are talking about a thick wall. These stone walls in Rajasthan. I have stayed quite a bit of time in Rajasthan, so I can take some examples from there. These walls that are used in the fort in Rajasthan, those thick walls, they are a part of this passive architecture, a passive design strategy. They are a huge barrier against the heat from the outside, one of the cheapest source of construction material available in those days, and it doesn't let the heat to come in, thereby giving a huge level of thermal comfort indoors. Gomte was asking what is this embodied energy. Embodied energy is basically the amount of energy that is embodied within a building material. For example, you are talking about your bricks. These bricks, how they are made. You excavate the soil, then you put it in the molds, then you put it in the kiln, and lot of energy is used in this. So how much energy has been spent in a certain unit of the material during the construction, or rather by the time it has been used in your project. For example, if I am talking about, say, stones, Italian stone, which is not at all available probably in India, you have to import it. So when that material is produced in Italy, how much energy has been spent? When you're bringing it all the way across from Italy to India and to a certain location, say probably Dhanbad in the, where is it, Jharkhand. Okay, so how much energy has been spent to bring it there and then place it in your project? So that is the total energy which is embodied within that material. That is what is embodied energy.
So like manufacturing and plus transporting the energy entirely.
Entirely. By the time it has been used in the final place. Okay. So
Yes,
when
sir.
you, okay, fine. So when you talk about your this course, would you be talking about climate responsive design? Your building would be responding towards the climate. That is what is climate responding design. Will you be talking about that? Or will you be talking about renewable energy systems?
Yes, sir, we will be like such climatic conditions like we can use for different climatic conditions. Like if some area we have like more sunlight, rather than we can use solar panels, and that will go under something which will obviously have a consideration in climate with architecture. And some areas it has wind flow is in a high rate, so there we can use windmills. That will also be considered in that areas for a higher a bigger project. Like this will be also come in consideration with this. And climate response design in the sense like for the walls, how they means penetrate the heat or they capture the heat.
Hmm.
For example, in Rajasthan, we can say that in the daytime there is
Hmm.
more heat, but in the night it's very cold. So
Hmm.
there's something we can use some materials like where in the daytime it will capture the heat, and in the night time it will we can use it for our use own use.
For heating the indoors.
Yeah.
Okay. That is partly about the climate responsive design, yes. But when you talk about this climate responsive design, we generally don't focus on the renewable energy. We generally would we generally don't focus on renewable energy. We generally don't focus on green buildings, net zero buildings. No, we partially focus on sustainability, better indoor environment. Yes. What type of environment is better, would you say? environment with openable windows or an environment with air conditioning? Which type of
Open
environment?
windows.
Open windows.
Open windows.
Open
Sir,
windows.
according to the
Openable.
climatic conditions of our place,
So it will depend.
can be
Yes,
both.
So it will depend.
Sir, it can
So
be in
like in
accordance with the
Delhi,
climate of a place.
it
yeah,
can
yeah,
be the
you're right.
climate of the place, yes, but mostly, I mean, we are
Open
comfortable within
windows
it.
enhances ventilation.
Openable.
So,
Very important.
so does this enhancing ventilation. It is also done by an air conditioning unit. Yes or no?
So
How
that
many?
is an artificial
Yeah,
process,
but
but
that's an
those are
artificial
very
Yes, sir.
natural.
Airflow.
And now, if this guy, whosoever it is, just told us that in case of driving rain, I keep my window open. When there is rain, and along with the rain, there is, uh, wind blowing, and then can I keep my window open? Probably not.
No, sir.
Yeah, but it always won't rain.
It always won't rain. Acceptable. It
We
always.
also need airflow.
Now, can you understand the difference between passive design and active design? Partially, can you understand? All this last few minutes of discussion, can you partially understand what is this passive design and active design? Is window a part of passive design or an active design process?
Active.
Active.
Passive.
Active.
Active design.
Hmm?
Yes.
Active.
Active. Who said active? Who is this? Who was this? Don't be shy, nothing happens. Wrong answers
Passive
are
design.
welcome.
Yes, sir.
Or right answers are also welcome. Wrong answers are also welcome. Who was that guy?
Passive design.
Active?
Tushar.
Yeah, fine. Don't be, you have to give answers. Right or wrong, let us decide by discussion. Okay. Window is generally a part of passive design. Air conditioning, is it active or passive?
Active.
Anyone?
Window and air conditioning are both are opposite, so it may be active.
It has to
Like
be active.
Sir, air
window, we
conditioning
can
is
open
active, I
and
believe.
close,
One by
but
one.
It is working actively.
Which one?
Air conditioner, sir.
Air conditioning is working
Sir,
actively.
sir, can you please differentiate between the two, active and passive?
sir,
Then we
but
can,
That is what. Just
Yes, sir.
understand here. See, I don't like about these bookish definitions because most of them I am not aware of. Okay, but just
sir, if
understand.
you can,
Yes. Huh?
sir, if you can say that a window is a passive design, then we can
Yes.
also say that air conditioning is also a passive design. So because as the functions of window, we can open and close as we need. The
Hmm.
same likely we can also on and off the air conditioners for our ventilation or anything we need.
Fine. Fine. Agreed. I agree to that. But when you talk about a window, how much, it's always existing. A building you design, it will definitely have a window, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir,
Yes, sir.
obviously.
It will be
Yes, sir.
there.
Yes.
Most of the time, you don't give a window in the toilet, okay, but you will give a window anyhow. So it is a means in which you are spending less amount of energy. You are going to go and open it or close it, fine, or you give an opening for the purpose of ventilation. For example, many of our houses have ventilators at the uppermost level, like right below the slab or the lintel, right? Yes, you understand what a
Yes, sir.
ventilator is. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
just in a passive form. You close it or don't close it, it's on your wish, but it is there. For example, I talked about turning on the light in my room, the tube light, and I use the window for getting natural light. You may argue here that I am going to use a curtain to cover up my window. You may argue here. Fine, I want to paint it dark, but otherwise it's in a passive form. like a ceiling fan and the air conditioning, are these active or passive forms?
So ceiling fan is active.
And air conditioning?
That is also active.
Active.
Active only.
Active.
Basically, are you able to understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
So passive is more about using the natural resources for our task, and active is more about not using the natural resources.
By the way, again, I could ask you, and many of us would ask you just for one part of it, what is this natural resource? Your window, you're making from timber, which process lightning, everything. So, what is the natural resource here?
So sunlight and air are natural resources. So we are using sunlight uh, for the light, and in
Great.
other case we are using an artificial light. So
Okay, so partially can you able to understand? Now, if I give you the option to make a passive design, can you understand what type of systems you would be targeting? Can you guys understand what type of systems you should be targeting when you talk about passive design? For example, I wish to shade my window. In many buildings, you might have seen there are mechanical louvers which are placed, right? And many a time you provide an overhang at the lintel level of your window to shade it. So you can probably differentiate again which one, the overhang at the lintel level or the mechanical louvers that have been provided. Out of these two, which one is a passive system and active system for
The
shading the
mechanical looper will be active and the overhang thing would be that passive.
passive? Getting. Anyone else would like to say?
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir, but I am
Yes.
unable to understand the difference between the two. It's active and passive.
There is a certain level of difference. This who was the last guy who told? This guy. Okay. When you are trying to use the natural resources,
That long
probably you are
term.
targeting the passive systems.
Dalgona supplementation.
Yes. For example, I plant a tree outside my window. Okay. In certain conditions, the window would be shading my room. Say when the sun is at a lower altitude, the window would be shading my room. So what do you call that? Is it working actively or passively? This guy who asked the question.
Passively.
Passively. Okay. And on the other hand, I provide a curtain or mechanical louvers within my room. Are they going to work actively or passively? A mechanical louver, it will work when you want it to function.
Actively.
Yes, it will work when you want it to function. It will otherwise not work. I mean, it will be, say, you provide a curtain. It is a active means you can say, but partially it is also, but yes, it is an active means. Something which will function on its own even when you don't desire it to. But it will function according to your necessity. Providing a 600 wall within your building, it is going to be a passive means because it is going to be a barrier to the heavy heat outside. Are you getting me here? Tushar, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
The controllable things means active, and those can't be controlled by humans are passive design.
Yes, you can
Yes, sir.
always differentiate in that way. Agreed. We'll be looking into this passive systems gradually. So passive design is something which we'll be targeting here. Vernacular is actually the vernacular architecture, the traditional systems. they are actually influenced by climatology, the climatic architecture. Integrated design partially we may look at, but what you will get towards the end is this climate responsive design. So just let us look at this plan for the time being. Okay, it's visible, right? It's a living room, there's a master bedroom, two toilets are there probably in this drawing. Okay, so I want you to analyze this plan based on these. What is missing in this plan? Anything is anyone?
Sir, entrance.
Entrance is to the north. What is
So the
missing in
source
this?
of sunlight is missing.
You give a source of sunlight in your drawings.
So we should be able to know where the sunlight is coming from, right?
How do you know that?
Sir, directions are missing.
The directions are missing.
So direction.
Any type of drawing you do, this is the first thing which should be there. This again part of the architectural design, the orientation. You should always mark your north within your drawings. Always. Whether you have been told to or not told to, the plan should always have a north. That is the north. That is the north. It should always have a north no matter what. And try to point the north vertically upwards in all your drawing sheets. It shouldn't be, say, if your sheet orientation is something 45 degrees in that sheet is your north. No. Make it a habit that your north should be pointing vertically upwards. Now looking at this plan, I would expect you to analyze this based on your theoretical understanding, orientation. What would you comment about the orientation? What is your comment about the daylighting within this building?
Sir, very less.
How do you say that?
Sir, if we consider the sun's direction,
East side
its size
doesn't have
and
enough windows.
yes,
Sorry?
No, there are no
Yes, in
openings
the
in the
east
east side.
direction, it doesn't have windows
east
much.
direction. Yes, sir.
Each direction
So
does not have windows.
considering the sun's direction, we can find, we can make out that it doesn't have some sunlight source.
So the position of the kitchen seems wrong. There are
Right?
no openings.
There are no openings.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, like near the gas stove, either it should be on the side or in front.
So you mean to say it should be beside the refrigerator?
Yes, sir, maybe, yeah, that side. It should be.
And then
But a chimney would work there.
Yes.
What's the point in that? I mean, a chimney would work there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One thing I can probably say, yes, there are no openings in the kitchen. Could be a fire hazard if you don't provide openings. Could be a fire hazard if you don't provide openings.
So
Otherwise,
there are open kitchens.
it's an open kitchen
There
again.
are open kitchens as well. So we can't arguing over this that fire safety and all. If they are building an open kitchen, then there must be fire safety.
Yeah, there has to be. Okay, what else? Let's take up one by one room at a time. The cornermost bedroom. This one. What do you say about this bedroom? Does it get good amount of daylighting?
No.
Yes, it would
sir.
receive. So
It would.
if it's a window on,
No.
It has a window on either wall, two adjacent walls. So there is a certain chance that you might get daylighting. What
no,
about
yes, sir.
what about the thermal comfort? What about the thermal comfort in this bedroom? What are your comments?
Sir, in the midday it would be like getting more hot in the
There is a lot of
mid of the day.
feedback. There is a lot of feedback. Who am I talking to?
Abhishek.
Abhishek. Okay, Abhishek, please reduce the background noise. Okay, it becomes a little bit
Okay.
difficult to understand.
Yes. Sir,
What
actually,
about the, wherever you are, try to sit in a proper place next time. What is this thermal comfort
yes.
about this bedroom? Yes, Abhishek, tell me.
So like in the daytime, if it won't get the sunlight properly, so in the midday it will be like on the um, something like what can I say?
What do you think?
Uh,
Just say if it is right or wrong. I don't care. Just
The
say.
so like
in the
it must
afternoon
be
heat.
like
Hmm.
yeah, the afternoon, yes, same. The afternoon heat, it must be getting the most
Which one? The bedroom Mark one.
one.
Yes.
Yes, it will get more heat in the afternoon. So, how many of you agree with Abhishek here? And the other girl who is saying yes in the background. Okay, let's agree or disagree. What about the external shading? There is no external shading in this drawing, so we'll drop it. What is this mutual shading? Can anybody tell me the difference between this external shading and mutual shading? By the words, can you
The
tell me the
shading.
shading? Yes.
Mutual shading means a kind of shading that we in the covering from other parts of the house, like thermal covering and all.
Like the
Maybe.
walls.
Like the walls, the adjacent walls, probably.
Yes.
The surrounding walls. For example, look at this part. If the sun is in this location, okay, there is going to be a chance of mutual shading here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, something again you can feel like this. Otherwise, there are flat walls. That is what is mutual shading. What about the materials? We don't know about the materials here. But does the material matter when you are talking about climatic architecture, or, as I said in the previous slide, what was it? Climate responsive design. Do the material, the construction material matter?
Yes, sir, of course.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or can I ignore the construction materials altogether and just do the
Yes,
design?
sir.
No, sir.
Right? Yes, sir, and no, sir.
So what
Why
is
does
the
it
question?
matter? Does
Sir,
it
the material we
matter?
use, it will
Yes,
be responsible for how much the building breathes, and also it obviously depends. We need to give importance to it.
you need to. Yes, I lost you there.
Sir, like materials are a very important part of any construction
Hmm.
because a lot of things depend, like how much, like the thermal resistance and everything.
Yes, materials are an important part. But, so what do you get at the end of this course? You understand what are these climatic conditions. India has been divided into 5 climatic zones. We'll be looking into them. What are these climatic conditions? What is this macroclimate and microclimate? What is daylighting? How do you obtain daylighting? How do you get thermal comfort? You can always get thermal comfort by using active means. And by that I mean, what type of system are you talking about here? But using air conditioning, HVAC, you can always get thermal comfort. But by using passive systems, how do I obtain thermal comfort? Climatic elements. What are these climatic elements you need to consider when you are talking about this design? One thing you should know, the climatic elements that you take into consideration when you are designing in, say, Guwahati, will not be the same as the climatic elements that you take into consideration when you are designing in Bangalore. Someone you have to actually give preference to. Passive design. Passive design strategies are an important part. They have been an important part when you talk about vernacular architecture, but otherwise now they are an important part in our design. Comfort conditions. The comfort conditions that you get and for how many hours you can get would be difficult for different type of climatic conditions, would be different for different type of locations. So ultimately you would be able to design a climate influenced shelter or a climate responsive design. That is what we are going to target by the end of this course. Clear here? Any questions?
Sir, thermal comfort comes under comfort conditions.
Both. I mean, sorry. Yes, it is a part of comfort conditions, yes, but it is not the only part of comfort conditions.
Sir, what else
Climatic
comes
conditions
under
as well.
comfort conditions?
Can you tell me? Can anyone tell me what other things would be there under comfort conditions? Yes?
So, dynamic views of the nature.
Okay. Other than that,
Daylight.
okay. Anything
Sir, but
else?
daylight तो thermal में ही आ जाएगा ना?
Why?
हाँ, daylight.
Why daylight is a part of thermal comfort? Who was this?
Sir,
Abhishek?
sir,
Who is
thermal
Because
this?
means
daylight
heat.
contributes in increasing or raising the temperature
Sir, the word,
in
sir, the
some
word
in some
thermal.
parts.
One by one, please. Huh? Yes?
Sir, the word thermal itself means heat, so daylight तो इसी के अंदर ही आएगा ना?
Not necessary. Who am I speaking? Who is this?
Sir, Aman.
Aman. Okay. Just tell me, does light always include heat? Natural light, does it always include heat?
Not necessarily.
Aman, just think and
Sir,
tell me. Yes.
natural light has many forms, so maybe not.
If you are talking about natural light getting reflected from the moon, definitely you don't get heat, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you can always figure out one thing, that whenever you are looking outside your window in your house or in your hostel, you don't always face the sun, you don't always get the heat inside your room, but you generally over the day many a time you get natural light which is soothing to your eyes. Yes or no? But
Yes,
it is
sir.
not the heat component. You get a reflected component, you get some sky component. So that is where daylight doesn't mean that there is heat going to be involved. Say on a cloudy day, I guess most of you would have been getting good rains in your place, right?
No, sir.
The same with me.
No,
But
sir.
okay, say someone is in Mumbai,
Yeah.
Gomti is from Mumbai, right? You're getting good rains. You're getting good daylight probably during the days. If it's not,
दिल्ली में भी हो रही है सर.
दिल्ली में भी हो रही है, बनारस में भेज दो थोड़ा बहुत.
Sir, if it's rainy, then we don't get daylight that much.
That much, but still you get. Say
Yeah.
probably, when it's not raining but it's cloudy, you get some amount of daylight. You don't need heavy amount of daylight, but still you get a certain amount, which is soothing and pleasurable to your eyes. It's not going to heat up your indoors. Okay, so comfort conditions, one part is the thermal conditions, accepted. One part is the visual comfort. You can have very good thermal conditions, but then if you don't get the natural light indoors, people generally get disoriented. There is something known as I think circadian cycle. I hope I am right there. Has anyone heard of the circadian cycle or circadian rhythm?
No sir.
Yes?
No sir.
No. Sahil must be doing a web search now, right? Mr. Sahil? So there are other conditions as well involved when you talk about the comfort conditions. Yes. How many of you like this building?
तो बहुत अच्छी है.
बहुत अच्छी है.
Seen for the first time.
Seeing it for the first time, even I saw it for the first time yesterday.
Yes.
This apartment or
Yes,
this residence looks rather nice, right? I mean, good overhangs. Very good rendering, I would say. This one,
Awesome sir.
listen. This building,
Yes. Yes.
Very nice.
where is it located? Can you tell me? Where is this building with slanting wall located? It's in London. Leadenhall building, London. It's also known as the cheese grater. Because of that sloping wall, it has been given the title of cheese grater. There's a story behind why that wall is sloping. Can you tell me which building is this one? Any guess? Anyone?
Sir, what kind of material is used here?
The last one?
Yes sir.
Yes, sir.
Glass.
And the cheese grater में
Glass.
सर सीसीटीवी हेडक्वार्टर
किसने बोला ये?
राशेश
Google search.
आशीष. बहुत जल्दी वेब सर्च कर लिए लग रहा है.
फिर ये उसने बनाया था पहले.
उसने बनाया
सर
था.
मैंने बनाया था इस पर.
इस बिल्डिंग का बहुत ही बुरा रेपुटेशन है इन चाइना.
सर इसलिए तो बनाया था.
That's good. For example, now let me take this cheese grater building, the Leadenhall building from London, and put it in Delhi. Will it function there? Yes or no?
So repeating.
Will this cheese grater building, I take it from London and bring it as it is in, say, Delhi and place it there, will it function?
No.
Why?
Sir, depends on
So
the
because
material used.
climatically they'll be different, right? Matlab,
Climatically it would be different. Fine. But why would it not function?
It will function. It will function.
Who is saying it
They
will function?
probably installed something which is compatible with their climate and might not work with our climate.
Might not work, may work, may or may not. How many people of you feel that it may work in Delhi?
Yes, sir, it may go.
Why?
So because normally we are also advancing, like it is possible in near future that we may build more taller buildings like this and more difficult, like more shuttle buildings from this also maybe. But as it is, may not be possible, but it will function here in Delhi
It may be
because
possible after some modifications or something.
Modifications in what sense?
Sir, modifications according to the climatic conditions as of lightning conductor लगा दें अगर मतलब ऊपर और ये वो ऐसा कुछ.
Lightning conductor is not a climatic modification. You have to put it in this type of building.
they must be having the conductor also because they must
That
be
is
also
fine.
having.
Yes, it must be having. It definitely is there. It rises to around 300 meters plus. The modifications which I can suggest in this case would be the modifications based on the building codes of Delhi. Otherwise, most of the buildings that I have replaced on this slide, are basically, you know, it can be used almost anywhere. I can take up that Leadenhall building and put it in the desert in Rajasthan, it would still function. Maybe the air conditioning load would be more, but most of these buildings are designed in such a way that it doesn't consider these passive systems to a larger extent. Maybe I need to change the glazing a bit, or maybe I need to change the air conditioning cooling load a bit. But yes, most of these buildings, especially, I mean, all of these five which I have displayed here, the slide had a title which is vanished for me. It says that most of these buildings are going to work almost anywhere. That is how the design practices are today. The and it is also going to be a helpful point for you is probably this Leadenhall building is also a green rated building. I am not too sure, it is probably a green rated building. But there is no architectural difference. I can see this cheese grater building and the CCTV tower, they almost have the same type of material that has been used, the same type of construction system also probably. Anyone can tell me which building is this?
Twin Towers.
Twin Tower,
Twin
Malaysia.
Towers.
Twin Towers, Malaysia. Petronas.
Petronas Twin Towers. There are some
Yeah,
other twin towers also. Okay. In Bangalore has a building which has the same type of spire as has been used here. Anyone tell me which building is this? Which building is
This
this?
is in Taiwan, China.
It is in Taiwan.
Taipei 101.
China. They are fighting for it till now. It's in Taiwan. Which building? Taipei 101.
Yes.
This guy? And I am also not sure about this one. This one probably you all know.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Which one is it?
Burj Khalifa.
Burj Khalifa.
Burj Khalifa.
Dubai. And there are 3 buildings in this. Can anyone tell me which buildings are these? This one, and this one. Can you tell me which one are these? Anyone?
Second is World Trade Center.
Where?
The Shanghai Tower.
The Shanghai Tower. Which one is number 1? What is it?
Chrysler Building.
Huh?
Chrysler Building. Chrysler Building.
Sorry?
Chrysler Building. Basically.
Chrysler Building. Chrysler Building and this
Or
Shanghai
Empire State
World Trade
Building.
Center are together. Yes?
The Empire State Building.
Empire State Building. Is it in Shanghai?
Oh, no, sir.
Huh?
Oh, no.
Oh no. Number 1 is Jinmao Tower. Okay, number 2 is, as someone said, Shanghai World Trade Center. Number 3, it's also in Shanghai. All these 3 buildings are in the same CBD area. You can check out their names. The first one which came up was the Jinmao Tower, and then 3 came, and then 2 came. 2 is one of the tallest buildings in the whole world now, standing at around, I think, 600 meters plus. Now, what I'm trying to show by these buildings is here probably this 4 and 5, what you are seeing here, it has got a similar structure, a flat glass facade, nothing much to look about. I can always do a copy paste of this 4, Photoshop it and put it in Delhi and it would still work out. People may still believe that it is there. Gurgaon has a lot of these glazed buildings. It may still work out. Certain thing here in these buildings, I am not too sure where I picked this image from. Let's ignore this one for the time being. The rest are having a certain definition of the local areas. The first one is the Petronas Tower. This structure comes from Malaysian architecture. Taipei 101, it has tried to resemble the bamboo. Okay, and these are the nodes on the bamboo. This one is the node, and 101 it somehow resembles with the number. It's an odd number, and there are 8 sections in this building, so that makes it something to do with the Buddhist people. Number 1, which I have marked here in Shanghai, this Jinmao Tower, again it has tried to follow the pagodas. The Buddhist architecture pagodas they have tried to follow. None of them again, and this Burj Khalifa has tried to take up the architecture of a flower, something of significance in Islamic architecture, and that they have tried to bring up here. So overall, what you can see here is there is something to do with the local traditions and stuff, but again, these are all glass Goliaths. We have this one building. Can you tell me which building is this? I'll take another 5-10 minutes. So please hold up for the time being. Anyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Which building was that?
I don't know, sir.
Anyone would like to attempt? This is the World Trade Center. This same building can be placed almost anywhere, be it on the beach in Kerala, be it in Shimla, be it in the Thar desert or any desert for that matter, be it near a river if the bylaws permit, or again on a hilly terrain if the structure permits. These buildings are mostly designed in such a way that it can be placed almost anywhere and they would function. So you have the same taste for all flavors. And that is what mostly architecture is coming to, or it has been coming to for quite some time now. Which building is this?
Hawa Mahal.
Hawa Mahal.
Hawa
Mahal.
Ah. What is the speciality of this building?
ventilation system.
Ventilation system. So there is a certain flavor of Rajasthan and something to do with the ventilation system. We will look into that. What is it? Let's move on to some infamous building. This one. What type of architecture is this generally?
Vernacular architecture.
That is
Vernacular.
architecture. Okay.
Vernacular architecture.
Someone is unable to speak anymore. What happened?
Exhausted.
Okay. Exhausted. Only just finishing off. You had a 2-hour session. We could have taken a break. Let me finish a little bit early then. Okay. This one again, it's in. Where is this one?
Killa.
Huh? It's in Jaisalmer, made I guess with Jaisalmer sandstone. The first one, Hawa Mahal, is not exactly made of stone. The orangish thing that you can see, there's a bit of plaster on that. Whereas the last one, it's a Haveli in Jaisalmer. It is made entirely out of stone and there is no plaster work on top of it. Where would this building be located?
Kerala.
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 Assam. etc.
Kerala.
Kerala, Assam,
South.
South,
Goa.
Goa. What do you call these? What
Goa.
type of system is this? What type of system is this?
Water management, sir.
Hmm?
Water management.
Water
What
management.
For prevention of floods.
Yes, sir.
management? What do you call this? Stilt parking? This house is built on stilts. It's not exactly, see, as you guys are saying, that this building can be in Kerala, in South, in Assam. And what are your reasons for saying that it is in Kerala or in Assam?
So they are
Flood prone
flood prone area.
Prone to floods.
Prone to floods.
Floods. But where is it exactly located? Kerala or Assam?
Sir,
So
Assam.
most
Assam,
probably
sir,
Kerala.
Assam.
Assam.
Kerala.
It looks like bamboo.
It looks like bamboo,
Yeah.
and that is how this building saves.
Assam.
I cannot probably place this building directly in what do I call? Kerala I cannot put it, it's in Assam, and I cannot directly put the same building in Kerala. It would not be functionally so much useful. Kerala gets lot of rains, but Kerala is, I believe, on a hilly terrain, and the water rushes off. There is lot of damage, everything accepted. Whereas Assam has certain areas in plains, and the water gets stagnated for quite some time. And every year it happens. And that is why they had to come up this strict system for buildings. Where is this one?
So can you repeat?
See, Kerala has a certain typical climate which doesn't exist in Assam. Okay, so any building, you are talking about rains, accepted. But using the same building which I have used in Assam, I cannot directly put it in Kerala. The requirements are different, though you may say that both places get lot of rain. I cannot place the same building directly in Assam. I cannot place this building directly in Kerala. The requirements of both the places are different.
So Kerala has hills and Assam lies on plains. That is why the things are different.
Not necessarily. There are other requirements also. Rain is not the only dominating factor. Probably this diagram shows that rain is an important part, floods are an important part. Kerala doesn't face too many floods. Over the past few years it has been facing. I think since 2018 there have been a propensity of floods in Kerala, right? Before that there were very rarely there were any disasters in Kerala. Am I right there? I guess we are all losing on energy, right?
Yes, sir.
At least say that. Anyone else? Okay, one lady has accepted. Other than that, all of you are having energy till now?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay, I will skip the class for now. We can call it a day for now. And what I am trying to say. Okay, what I'm trying to say here is let's call it a day, and tomorrow we have a tutorial from 2 to 3. I will send an assignment across which you have to submit by 3 o'clock tomorrow. Amod has a question or anything? Hand has been raised. Amod?
No, sir. I don't.
Okay, so I'll send out the assignment today. I'll try to send it as soon as possible. You have to submit it by tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Basically, you have to make a plan of your house, and you can take it down. Otherwise, I also send out the question by mail or by what is this Teams. I'll send it across. But what I'm saying is you have to make a plan of your house, and you have to identify the openings. You have to do a measure drawing actually of your house. You have to identify the openings. You have to identify what are the surroundings around your house. Say you're staying in an apartment, on which floor, uh, what is there near the entrance, what is there on the right side of your building, what is there on the left side of your building. You have to identify them, and the material that has been used in the construction of your building. You have to identify that, and by tomorrow you need to send it across. Fine?
So how do we find out the materials being used in the construction?
You just do a guesswork, you just touch it, say probably it's a plaster, You ask your parents if you are staying in an old house that what is the material, probably they will tell you stone, just take it down that stone. Okay. Overall, I mean, I don't need you to excavate and check what type of material is there. Just an overall idea. Can we do that?
Sir, we already did a plan in first year. Can we
Okay,
just
sir.
submit that in
Yes,
AutoCAD
that
file?
is
Yes,
what.
sir. We should change some things.
I will
Someone
take a
said,
print of this plan.
yes, someone said, okay, he is the smarter one, he knows he doesn't have to do anything. But the plan part is fine. You have to identify the materials as well. Materials and the surroundings. There is a tree outside your window, just write it. Maybe you can identify what type of tree it is. Is it a mango tree or it's a banyan tree or it's anything else? Tomorrow you just omit the tree because you say there is no tree, fine. But whatever it is, you have to document it, do a measure drawing, and send it across. If there are
So, do we have
openings,
to show trees in the plan?
yes, you should better. If you have, say, you are staying on the fifth floor in an apartment building, on the fifth floor. So what is there on the right side? Try to do a sketch on the right side apartment. In front there might be a corridor. Okay, mark the corridor and do an overall plan of your building. In
So
case you are
like,
staying in an apartment. Yes.
so for the materials, we should just write the materials or represent them as well.
You represent them
Whereas
in
we
the,
need to write only.
you need to write for the time
We
being
need to write.
and just take down, jot it and send it across. Okay. I will send out the written words. I couldn't make it today. If you have the plan ready, it's okay with me. Don't bother about it. Just send it across to me and we will be working on this one assignment across the entire semester. Fine. So whatever you start with today, it will be progressed across the entire semester for different assignments. But this is the first stage. Are you getting me, Hemant? Mr. Hemant?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So don't miss out on the assignment this time.
Yes, sir.
Right? Anume, you got it? Yes, Anume?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay. And next time onwards, please try to get a mic at least. I mean, chat is fine, but it's difficult for me to follow the chat and the presentation together. Camera is also advisable. CCTV, don't need a CCTV. Ashish said CCTV something.
Sir, in some previous webinar,
Hmm.
Nilanjan sir told us that all green buildings are sustainable.
Well,
Yes, sir.
I don't agree to it.
Sir, but he told us that.
I can understand he might have said out of his experience, but whatever experience, fair bit of experience that I have seen that it's basically if you pertain to the standards, you will get a green certification. You go ahead with the IGBC codes, you'll get a green certification and the building might not be sustainable. It might be able to reduce its energy consumption, it might be able to give you a better working place, but generally it doesn't reach that level of sustainability. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Someone of you directly said today that what were your words? all green buildings are sustainable, but not all sustainable buildings are green. To a certain extent, this line is true. Whose visual is this? I can see changing the backgrounds. Who is this?
Sir Tushar.
Fine. You can change the backgrounds here, right?
Yes, virtual backgrounds.
Okay, that's good. Next time I'll also attempt. Fine. So we'll call it a day and try to participate in the class, all of you. I mean, that would give you credits as well towards your final marks. You might
Sir,
have
excuse me.
construction
Sir, in
material.
the last we discussed Assam houses. So what was that system? That those talked systems.
Those were stilts. The building on stilts. STILTS.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any questions you have, you can always send it across. But assignment, please be on time by 3 p.m. tomorrow. Don't make it late. I'll send the question paper as soon as possible. By 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, you will have it with you. Tomorrow,
AutoCAD
So we
file
have made
भेजिए.
an
Okay, sir.
send AutoCAD file. Send the PDF file.
Okay,
sir.
okay.
Okay.
So we can
Don't
just convert it and send it.
Yes. Sorry.
So we can just convert it, work on it, and send it, right?
I don't have any issues whether you measured today or you have measured 2 months back. I don't care about it. Okay. Or you get it measured from someone else. It's fine with me. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Chalo, have a nice day. And
Okay, thank you, sir.
send your,
Thank you,
yeah.
sir.
Chalo.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nice day.
Thank you,